Welcome to Politics is Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host at KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. In the studio with us today is my brother from another mother, my great friend, El Señor Bruce Pollard. How you doing today,
I'm
Bruce?
doing great, Egberto. It's really good to be here with you, and we're going to have some good discussions today, I think.
Absolutely.
There's a lot happening.
Absolutely so. You know what, man? We go back a long time. We're going to have some fun today, but today, I am very, very concerned. I don't know if Bruce is going to completely agree with me, and I know if he doesn't with what I'm going to say here, well, hear about it. But anyhow, folks, title of the show. Beforehand, today, I would love folks to listen to what I'm talking about here, and I'd love to hear your input early on in the show, if you will. The number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Would love to have your input, because I'll be honest with you. Right now, I'm a bit upset. I'm a bit concerned about how we look at things. I've been going through a few talking here while we're before the show with Bruce and also with the manager, and hearing things where we agree and disagree and all that kind of stuff. We have a lot of talking we got to do. We got a lot of listening that we have to do. Anyway, the title of the show today is Stop the False Narrative. It was necessary, but it is a bailout. And second one is Big Pharma getting scared, do you think? Welcome aboard on the internet to El Señor Paul Fleming. But again, folks, give us a call, 713-526-5738. I know you want to hear, what are you asking me to call for if you don't have anything to say yet? I'm going to read that first, but I want to give Bruce an opportunity to just tell you guys hello and what's on your mind.
Oh, hi, say, Egberto, have you ever gotten an insurance policy and then put a claim in for more and gotten more money than you were insured for?
No, why?
Well, that sort of sounds like what's happened in the banks right now.
Oh, I love the way you said that. Oh, God, dang, Bruce. That is so true, though. That is so true.
So there's something more working there than just the insurance policy.
Yes. As you definitely said so as well. All right, folks. Title of the show today is Stop the False Narrative. It was necessary, but it is a bailout. And second item is Big Pharma getting scared. Subtitle of the show, Stop the False Narrative to Protect a Financial Sector that Produces Nothing as it Enriches Itself with Faux Products. By Big Pharma playing a PR game with insulin. Don't for it. Those of you who got my email, I forgot a word in there. I wanted to say don't go for it. But anyhow, hey, we're only human, right? All right, first one. I want you to listen to this one, and I want you to start calling 713-526-5738.
Yeah, your calls are really important, because that gives us a chance to have a dialogue and to get a good picture of the way everything works and the way different people think, so we can come to some common agreement that will help everybody get on the same bus.
You know, Bruce, before I go into this, I love what you said earlier, because you were talking about, Egberto, we really have to get absolutely everybody, disregard everything else. We need to get to that position where we can all get on that bus and rhetorically or figuratively go in DC and say, this is what we want.
Yeah, that's right, because there are changes that need to be made, some of them simple, not so simple, in our Constitution, and we've got to be able to have some kind of movement to amend it and get it adjusted. It's not perfect. Times have changed, and the only way that's going to happen is when we get everybody, not just people from one part of life or another, but everybody together and coming together to stand in Washington and say, we want our country to change this way.
Absolutely so. Anyhow, here's the deal. It was necessary, but it is a bailout. Don't let anybody change those words to you, folks. And let me increase the size of my reading here, because as you guys know, my cataracts are starting to misbehave. Wish me luck when I get that taken care of. Anyhow, I had another topic I wanted to work on today, but I am concerned that the attempted quasi-redemption of banking, both traditional banking and investment banking, in the media is in full vogue. And that is the reason we get into the soil wash, rinse, repeat cycle. Soil, rinse, repeat, or rather soil, wash, rinse, repeat cycle. With the fraud sector, I mean, the financial sector. Notice I call him the fraud sector. I'm just listening to what my good friend Bernie Sanders have to say. But anyhow, during the 2016 primaries, Senator Bernie Sanders said that Wall Street's business model is fraud. I do not believe Bernie went far enough with that statement. He should have said that our entire financial sector is predicated on legalized fraud. In other words, most of what is done in the financial sector are legal. But being legal does not mean ethical, moral, or beneficial to society. When one understands the definition of a parasite, it is difficult not to see that the financial sector is flushed with a large contingent of parasites and parasitic behaviors. I don't want to come across too harsh, even though that was sort of harsh.
Sort of harsh.
Yeah, that was sort of harsh. But, you know, Bruce, and I know to some extent you probably will have some words on this, but Bruce, when I see the way we talk about the average person, and we don't want to give student loans, and the way we treat other folks, we don't coddle the rest of Americans. And every time something happens with something like the banking sector or something like the stockholder, or we always try to do something fast to make it whole. Look, Biden had to do what Biden did. I agree. But my God, look how fast it happened over a weekend. And they came out and they told all those folks in the banks with deposits, we'll make you whole. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first off, I think that the system, the FDIC system, is designed, I always thought, to make everybody whole enough. And that there might be some people who had more money in an account than what was covered, but I know people who are in that situation and they just have more than one account. And so they're covered. I don't think that they needed to go any further than that. But by the same token, when you start hearing about all of the people, there was something special about that bank, that there are a lot of people invested in that. I guess because the bank paid back so well compared to other banks.
So then it's an investment, right?
But that's why I mean, people took the risk and it ran into trouble.
So anyway, let me continue with this here. I read you. The problem is we continue to coddle them and make excuses for them. That is the biggest moral hazard in our country. People always talk about moral hazard. We don't want to give folks stuff because it will create a dependency moral hazard. We have all these things that we call moral hazard. Too often we are quick to deny help to those who this sector bleeds dry with the narrative that helping the poor, creating necessary humane services, and the fair redistribution of unearned gains would somehow create a moral hazard.
So don't forget, if you've got some thoughts about this, to call in 526-713-526-5738, and we'll get in the discussion with you.
Absolutely. Hit option 2, please remember that.
Yep.
Many saying this are members of the financial sector where moral hazard is, in fact, continually in play. Projection only works if we allow it to work. In other words, when you hear all these people talking about moral hazard on Wall Street, when it's about increasing taxes so that we can get health care, so that we can get care for the kids who need their parents to go to work, so they need somebody to take care of the kids, so that whenever we talk about giving increasing taxes on those who have best benefited from our economic system, they talk about, no, that's a moral hazard. But you know, the people, they should look in the mirror. They are the moral hazard. They got used to making a lot of unearned income, a lot of gains on services and products not really rendered. The media highlighted the voices of many who put ridiculous possibilities for the reasons for the failure of Silicon Valley Bank. They allowed the woke argument, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI argument, the inflation argument, the interest rates argument, and many other arguments to create a bait and switch paradigm that takes one eye off the issue. In other words, there is some reason why this bank failed. It really wasn't the executives all that much. It isn't really something endemic to the financial sector. It isn't really this. So, this is somehow different. This is different than that average American citizen who just needs a hands up. So we need to help them because, this was just the way the system works. The financial sector creates instruments not to do good or produce a product or service beneficial to society, but parasitic instruments enrich those with capital. If a product or something good comes out of it, then it's a PR moment to capitalize on as the scam continues. I want to explain that because I so deeply believe this here. When you talk about a stockbroker and all these guys, look, I'm not saying we don't need stockbrokers to help folks navigate in a capitalist society because that's who we are and that's who we will be in the foreseeable future. So they understand the mechanics of financial instruments, right? But as something you said today in the car as we drove here, Bruce, you said, I tell you what, now I'm not going to say you say, let's talk about what you spoke about, what stocks and all these things used to be.
Well, so when we talk about this, in the old days, when things started out, the reason that people invested was because the company needed capital to do something to make their business better so they could create a product and people could buy it. And it required concrete and steel. I work in the chemical industry. So it required concrete and steel to create that new product. And so that was the investment that you made, and it was physically worth something. Now, when people put money in the stock market rides up and down, and it's got nothing to do exactly with the product or its value anymore. It's got just to do with what's happening in the stock market. And people put money in the stock market just so it'll change, and not because there's something happening in the company itself.
And that's the reason why I said, Bruce, the financial sector creates instruments not to do good or produce or to produce a product or service beneficial to society, but parasitic instruments to enrich with capital.
Right. And when you take what I'm thinking about to banks, especially the regional banks and the smaller banks, they're there. Like, remember in the Old West, there was the bank and people would put their money in. They're there for people like you and me to put their money in and have it be in a safe place and to grow a little bit as the economy is growing. No more, really. I don't want to make 100% on my money. I just want it to be A, safe, and B, to grow so that inflation doesn't make it less value. That's what I expect of a bank. Whereas other people who are putting money, large amounts of money, and the bank is saying, well, we can make more money if we just have different ways to invest. And it changes the way the bank operates. And it's not really a regional bank so much anymore as a global investment bank.
Absolutely. So folks, as it turns out, as you know, Bruce pointed out in the past, that's what we used to do. You invest in something so they can grow, produce a better service, produce a better product. Today, when you buy stocks and these other financial instruments, it's just for you to make $1 on top of $1, doing nothing for society. And then since it turns out to be all a gamble, when it goes south, it has nothing to back it up. There is no cement and steel, goodwill, none of that.
Yeah.
None of that is there to back up that stock. And that's why it goes and it floats. I'm going to get into a little bit more of that with Credit Suisse Bank, etc., a little bit later. But again, the financial sector creates instruments that's not producing anything, and for which these people enrich themselves for doing absolutely nothing.
And there's a marketing system in place that tempts people in the middle class who have some money but not a lot to invest in this because they believe that they can get another step further if they invest in these things that are taking higher risk than maybe what they should be taking with their money.
Absolutely so. So now, so folks, as we talk about this and we talk about Silicon Bank, as we talk about a system that really rewards those on the top, but we can't get our student loans approved, student loans forgiven or readjusted. None of that we can get done. But these guys, they falter. And in 2 days, they're given a bailout. I'm going to explain something about that bailout now. Here's the deal. Let's get something straight. We, the American people, bailed out a lot of rich investors who had deposits in Silicon Valley Bank. That's a statement of fact. The FDIC's funds by law insured $250,000 per account. All right? President Biden used his power to extend that to deposits of any size. While investors in the bank stock proper will lose their investment, there are instruments that will allow the recovery of much of that. But make no mistake, accounts over 250 received a bailout. When they claim that the FDIC is paying for the accounts, and as such, taxpayers are not on the hook, that may be seemingly true, but factually false. The banks pass all those fees right back to the taxpayers with higher fees and lower interest on their deposits. So make no mistake here. The only way we can cover the losses in those banks is for it to come from the FDIC by fees, yes, paid by these banks. But those fees are not ultimately paid by the bank. It is ultimately paid by you.
So, Egberto, I'm still confused a little bit.
Yes.
When I put money in the bank, I think they put it into a vault or put it into some bonds or something which are of fixed value. If they make a little money on it, they share that with me. But that money is always there. What happened here? I mean, did my money go away? Did they use my money for something else?
And that's the thing, that's a part that we call, at first, a lot of the banks, and including what this bank did here, is they would invest that money into things like government bonds, right? That pay a fixed rate. They would invest in other instruments. They'd loan the money back out because loaning the money out is itself an investment, right? In other words, if I put X amount of dollars in a bank and I am allowed, there's a thing called a demand deposit. You have to keep X amount in reserve, but you can loan the other rest out, which is what caused the creation of money.
So you're telling me that bank,
right,
loaned out more money, so they didn't have my $250,000.
No, they had an IOU for you. In other words, I owe you that $250,000, but I gave that $250,000. I put it to work by loaning it to somebody else who paid a little interest on that, and then I gave you a piece of the interest I collected by loaning out your money.
But then when the value went down of the things that they were loaning, for example, I guess that's what Treasury bills almost are now.
Right.
Bonds, that all of a sudden my money was gone?
Your money was never gone because the truth of the matter is they had a secure government bond, supposedly. And if you have a government bond, the face value of that bond remains the same. The market value of that bond changes because if the government is now issuing bonds at a higher cost, at a higher interest rates, in other words, if you have a bond that's paying 2%, and the government issues are now issuing bonds at 5%. Well, suddenly, if you were to try to sell your bond, there's a formula that they're going to use that says, well, over time,
right,
that bond is worth less over time in an inflationary market.
That's like in the engineers world, we do this thing called net present value.
Net present, there you go. Exactly right. Exactly right. So, but the thing about it is the face value of that money stays the same. So if that bank never intended to get rid of those 10-year government bonds, nothing really changed. It's because of the way our floating economic system works that makes it any different. In other words, because that particular bond, if they attempted to sell it, they couldn't get face value. That is the reason why the bank is supposedly in trouble. Here's the funny thing about it, though. The feds are going to loan money to all these guys at the face value of their assets.
So then what triggered the run?
Again, that just shows you how our system is really not a secure system. The run occurs because we had a lot of people on Twitter. We had a lot of rumor mills going around and saying, take your money out of Silicon Valley. They're going under. Nothing really changed from day 1 to day 2 other than the run. And they would have run out of available cash.
So our president covered that run.
Our president covered that run. And he had to do it.
It's the right thing to do.
It was, no, I do not disagree. It absolutely was the right thing to do. The problem is we have a system where the right thing to do only applies to a particular sector. And secondly, when it comes to these guys, given that they know how the system runs, these bankers at Silicon Valley and all the other banks that are about to fail, they know how the system runs. And if they invested that much of their money into government bonds that they know will depreciate if inflation goes up and the government start issuing bonds at a higher rate, their job is to know that the present value, as you just was mentioning, the present value of that investment has just dropped. I mean, I don't agree with it. That's just how the system works.
So who's going to have to pay for the covering?
The FDIC will pay for that out of the fees.
So the banking system is going to cover it. The banking system pays,
but there ain't no banking system without us.
But that means we're going to get less interest on our investments because some's going to go into the insurance policy.
Exactly. Those billions that go into that insurance policy are billions being removed that otherwise people would have earned.
Yep.
And that's the reason why I am not comfortable with Brother Biden and all the others trying to save face for these banks that are saying, oh, it's not going to cost the taxpayer nothing. It cost the taxpayer. It was a bailout because the insurance policy was for $250,000. Everybody got their monies back.
So the trade-off to all of this would be to have a nationalized banking system.
That is where you and I would probably get into a little bit of disagreement. But I think given that whenever the bank fails already, the government makes them whole, I think that the honest answer to me is that banking, the control of our money should be nationalized, in my humble opinion, because whenever they get into trouble, we make them whole. But when they're making a lot of money, that money goes to the wealthy.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I speak about, when I talk about nationalization of certain sectors, I don't want everything nationalized. I want the things that we depend on, the things that we shouldn't leave for the profit motive. And that's where, when you and I are having our private conversations, I try to get into, no. What I'm hoping for is I want a system where there are certain things that belong, in my opinion, into the for-profit sector and others that don't. And look who we have on the line, our good friend, Brother Barry. Let's let Barry into the fold. Barry, come on in, my dear brother. Come on in, Barry. Barry, let's get that red signal to bring you in. Come on in. Barry, you're on, sir. Come on in, sir. Sorry about that. You're on now, Barry.
All right. I got 3 objections here.
Yes, sir.
One, had it been some climate change BS, you would have had an expert on climate change on.
Okay.
But now banking, you don't have an expert on to go over with you. You're going over with your socialist buddy.
Okay.
And I don't see how that advances the agenda. Are you saying, though, that the investments made at the high end do not do society any good?
No. Well,
wait a minute.
Okay,
buying
sorry.
government bonds in and of itself is a good thing. Are you saying that $100 billion created last year by Goldman Sachs that went to create 100 small businesses and augment 100 more is not a societal good?
Can I first defend my brother next to me? Bruce is not a socialist.
If he's not a socialist, let him speak for himself.
I know, but because the program is my program, sir. I just, if somebody says something about my guest, I think I should be the first to correct something.
All right. I call him a socialist. Go ahead.
All right. So
Thank
good.
you.
He's not. Thank you. Bruce, you want to answer that? Anything?
I don't bother with those things.
Okay, great. So let me answer your question, Barry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, Barry, let me answer your question now.
Why no bank expert on today?
Okay, I don't think bankers are experts. That's one of the reasons why I can take a banker as far as I can throw him.
So, are you a banking expert?
Any climate change,
Barry,
winer is the expert.
Are you a banking expert?
No, I'm not. But any climate change, wait a minute. But any climate change winer would qualify as expert, though, right?
Yeah. So I think I would too. But this is all a big picture thing.
That. Is Goldman Sachs doing good for society?
No. I can answer that categorically.
Creating 100 businesses and augmenting 100 more is not societal good.
Let me ask you. No, it's not. It's the creation of 100 businesses is very good, but it didn't take a Goldman Sachs who profited from those businesses to do that.
So Goldman Sachs is running a charity.
No, they shouldn't run a charity, but
Goldman Sachs is in it to make money.
Yes, they are, but
and shareholders.
I agree with you there,
and
sir.
You don't get to dictate the amount of money
I
Goldman
agree.
Sachs is supposed to make.
Barry, here's the deal. I want you to listen to me and stop talking for a second, my brother.
Then start making sense then.
Well, then let me finish talking, sir. Here we go, Barry. I agree with you. I don't want to control Goldman Sachs or what Goldman Sachs makes, and Goldman Sachs is not a charity. You're absolutely right. Secondly,
I know I am.
All right, good. I'm happy for you, sir. Secondly, I don't need Goldman Sachs to create the money supply to have funded those businesses. We could have created entities that don't depend on some parasite that depend on my success to move forward. And that is what I'm trying to get
10, 20, or 30 years out from now.
Oh, it doesn't have to be, but you're right. Actually, believe it or not, sir, Barry, a lot of what you say is right. But
I know that. Okay.
So I'm trying to remember, was Goldman Sachs one of the banks that we bailed out?
Yes, it was.
No.
Yes, it was. It was one of the banks.
Not this time. Not this time.
There were no investment banks bailed out. They were all commercial banks. So get it straight.
No, what, from 10 years ago?
We bailed out.
There were no investment banks bailed out. There was no Goldman Sachs bailed out. Bank of America bought Merrill Lynch, and the others had their own money.
Goldman Sachs was bailed up, but we'll go into that a different time.
I'll study that.
No, let me tell you why. The thing about it is Goldman Sachs buys papers, okay?
Get past that.
Barry, hold on. Barry, please hold on, sir. Please hold on. Let's keep this civil. The fact of the matter is Goldman Sachs bought a lot of papers from many other institutions that were bailed out, and thus Goldman Sachs was in fact bailed out.
Oh, come on.
All right, Barry, Barry, anything else I need to jump to? Barry. No, don't hang him up. Don't hang him. I want to ask, don't hang up till I say, because I love my people. Let me just say this, Barry.
Thanks for calling.
I appreciate you calling.
Goldman Sachs bought the paper.
Brother,
when we talk climate, I'll want to hear from you, because I'm gonna ask some tough questions with climate.
I'm not a climate change one.
Barry, look, Barry, I appreciate your call. You keep listening and you keep calling, because we always like hearing your voice. Okay, brother?
And could we finally get the truth that Goldman Sachs is not running a charity? You cannot control Goldman Sachs' money.
Yes.
The shareholders are not putting much capital at risk for their health.
Thank you. 75% of what you said is true. Thank you, Barry. Have a great day. All right, let's go to Jane. Come on in, Jane.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon, Jane.
I'm kind of confused here.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm talking about the SVB, the Silicon Valley Bank failure.
Yes, ma'am.
And you were talking about nationalization of the bank.
Yes, ma'am.
Because they're paying out not only for people who own regular banking accounts, but also for those who do investments in this. Am I correct, or did I?
No, you're absolutely correct, ma'am. You're absolutely correct.
Okay. Well, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, okay, I have investment accounts and I have banking accounts.
Yes,
now,
ma'am.
banking accounts are two types as far as I know.
Right.
You can, besides the cash, which would be a savings account or a checking account, that kind of thing, or if you get a loan from the bank, that's daily citizen movement of money, and that's what I call a regular banking account.
Right.
That is that is insured by the
Yes.
FDIC up to $250,000.
If your bank is insured, if your bank says FDIC,
if the bank is insured,
yes,
it
is.
is in a backwoods bank in a back alley somewhere. Yeah, I can understand that. All
Yes.
right. Now, the other thing is, if I decide I want to invest in this new bank, okay, I don't give them my banking account. I give them an investment account. I give them kind of like buying a share.
Yeah, like if you go to Fidelity Investments or
right,
something. Yes.
or Sears Loman and
Right.
those other guys. Okay, all right, and yeah. So I have an investment account in which it is investing in the future of that bank.
The bank sells shares just like big companies, just like IBM
like
sells shares.
Corporations
Right.
do. Right. Now, from what I understand, and I might be totally off the wall here, but when I invest in a company, let's say Exxon,
Right.
and I invest over the years and buy when I have the money to buy another stock or 10
Right.
stocks or something like that. And if the company goes bankrupt, I'm going to lose my money.
You
right?
will lose your. Let me qualify certain things, like when you have an investment account at Fidelity or other places, right? Two things.
Well, they're holding
They're holding
it.
Right.
They're holding it. They're not owning it.
Right.
They're holding
Exactly.
it. They have to have a place to hold
Right.
the stock.
They are the one managing your stock. And yes, if Exxon goes under, you lose everything. That doesn't come under insurance. However,
Right.
places like Fidelity also have their own insurance policies. Okay. In other words, if Fidelity goes under, because remember, Fidelity has its own mutual funds and all that kind of stuff as well. And that company can go under, like Lehman Brothers and others go under. And
Right.
even though they own your stock, I mean, when they go under, all of that is under them.
The stock isn't gone.
The
stock, the stock
Well,
is still there.
Here's the thing, but things like money markets and all that kind of stuff that you have under that umbrella, if that stuff goes under, if certain investment firms go under, everything go under. Okay, but things like Fidelity have insurance on them as well. If you go to the Fidelity page, you'll see that they'll say something like your money is insured for over $1 million, or I don't quite remember what it says. Okay, but something to that effect. When you're outside of the FDIC system, right? There's a whole lot of difference, and I don't even know it all as far as.
I understand that. I understand that. So if Fidelity goes down, and let's say they used my Exxon stock as a bartering chip,
like a short for somebody else,
short-term loan, that kind of stuff. They can make some interest on it and that kind of thing. I still have my stock because Exxon is sending the dividends to me, not to Fidelity.
Right.
Fidelity can't use that.
At some point, if the stock is worthless and the company goes bankrupt, the stock is then torn up.
Yes.
And it's worthless.
That's if Exxon goes bankrupt. If Exxon goes bankrupt, my stock is worthless.
Right.
Yep.
But if Fidelity goes bankrupt, it doesn't mean my stock is worthless.
No.
Exxon still pays for it. But where I'm housing it's bankrupt. And I might lose some money because I have to pay their money managers.
The part that you could lose
buy
though
and
is
sell and that kind of thing.
Jane, hold on, Jane. I want to correct one thing that I think I'm correct here. Remember, when they hold your stock, they could have made trades with your stock, right? And did things with your stock.
They can't trade my stock.
No, not trade your stock.
Not without my permission. They can't,
but they can loan your stock. Okay? In other words, when you hear about these investment companies doing shorts and all of that, and if there's an investment banker that can correct me if I'm wrong, but when these guys have shares, I think you have authorized them to loan your stock so that they can create.
You have to authorize them to do it.
I think by having in having the account, you've probably. I could be wrong here. I'm not 100% sure.
If you have an account with Fidelity, okay, and they're holding your stock in Exxon or whatever it is they're holding, okay, you have to sign a paper that allows them to do certain things.
Right.
Now,
That's
if
correct.
you don't read it, and just sign it, you're liable to lose.
Yes, you're correct, Jane.
Things if they end up being
Jane, you're correct. Yeah. Let's move to the other part that you said you wanted to say.
Now, I want to go back to the bank with that same idea.
Yes.
They have an investment account at that bank for those who wish to invest in the bank's future. Mm-hmm. Now, whether or not a bank has insurance for that, I have no idea.
They weren't bailed out. Okay, the people that you just said they weren't bailed out.
Bailed out.
No, so they weren't bailed out.
The investors would lose their money.
Right.
Yeah, that's why the CEO of the bank, 3 weeks before all this happened, the CEO of the bank took some of it, $4 million worth of the stock that he had from his bank company.
Well,
he took it out.
I don't know anything like that, but the thing is that they were probably having a little problems because of inflation.
Right.
They were not getting a whole lot of interest on stuff, so they could get a lot of those bonds and sell them and this kind of thing for people to buy, which is fine. But when inflation occurs, the bond market goes down.
Exactly, and that's what caught them. But they should have known better.
Means they don't get any extra floating money for people who go up to the bank and says, "Hey, I want to cash my paycheck, or I want to cash $100 here." And things like that. So they don't have enough money to cover it.
That is what occurred.
Moment.
That's what a run is. A run is when enough of the people want to remove their money that is greater than the demand deposit that banks are now required to have, which is around 10% or something like that.
And by the CEO or whoever, I don't care, whoever did it, and went to Twitter and announced to the world, "Hey, this bank is Sunday." You have a perfect storm going.
Exactly.
They did not have a chance to even correct the problems that were occurring with the high inflation. Maybe all the banking people were there involved, the board of directors and so forth, were young people, and they have not had to.
Jane, I want to stop you there. Jane, I want to stop you there. Why do and I say this respectfully? Why do you feel the need to find a justification for a failure of people that have cost the system so much, as opposed to, let's say what I've said here, that this is a parasitic type financial system? Why did you...
Well, see, I don't know. In regard to that stuff, I really don't know if that is the case or not.
And that's what
conjecture at this point.
No, what I'm trying to tell you, and what I try to allude to in the narrative that I gave, is that we are, in fact, in a parasitic financial sector. Let's give another example, right? Yesterday was Silicon Valley Bank, and I don't remember the name of it.
Tomorrow could be my bank here in Conroe, Texas.
Right, and today, where are you?
Huh?
Where Conroe. Are you? Oh, Conroe, got you. And the other, but Credit Suisse Bank, big time bank. One investor says, "I am not putting any more money in it," and the market's about to crash. Can we not understand that this is not a system that really is on an even keel? And because so few of us understand how it actually works, that there is a problem inherent with the system itself. Don't you see that?
Yes, but you also have to consider some of the changes that were made with the rules and regulations of the bank.
I agree with you.
That they were loosened a few years ago.
Yep.
Yes,
and I think that was a mistake.
That was a huge mistake.
I mean, I'm not going to name names or anything else, but I looked at that and I said, "Are they crazy?"
Yeah, and the question then becomes,
and I'm not a genius in this.
The question then becomes: was the people who made those changes, were they acting in you and my interests, or were they acting in the interests of somebody that they weren't necessarily representing?
I have no idea what interest they were acting in, but I do know what they did was was crazy.
Jane, let me ask you a question.
It changes things to add more, I don't want to say illegal, but
Jane,
more
just risk.
Just
risk.
Jane, I want to continue with the program, but I love your voice and I love what you bring.
Yeah,
but
thanks for calling.
I don't want to get her. I want to probe you on something else here, really, because I want the audience to hear this. If you and your husband, go to a bank, and the only person the banker speaks to when both of you walk in is you. If you go to bank number 2, and the only person the bank speak to is your husband. If you go to these many other institutions, and the only person that gets respect and spoken to is your husband, what's the problem? And just tell me in one sentence. I don't want you to spend too much words. One sentence.
It's obvious.
What's obvious to you?
The guy's bigoted.
Okay, so let's start.
He watched too much of that show back there, Arthur.
Yeah, okay, I get you. You make your point.
Hated everything.
Right. So let me tell you where I'm going with this, though. Okay. So if every time something happens in Congress relative to the financial sector, and the folks that always get ahead are the folks with that have a certain or in a certain class or in a certain income level.
Oh, well, that's wrong to begin with, period.
Exactly. So so the same, I want people to start making the same, just like you were able to see immediately that there was an issue when you are the one going to the store with your husband or going wherever with your husband and he gets the respect. If everything that happens correctly...
If we had that, the first thing I would do is say, what's the matter?
I know, and that's what...
I'm the financial genius,
stop right there, Jane.
My husband.
Stop right there, Jane. Stop right there, Jane. That is what politics done right wants Americans to do with respect to our society. Just the answer that you just gave. I want them to stand up and say, why don't all of us benefit from the system? I got to let you go, Jane, but I really wanted to have one of our people actually come out and say what you just said. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll tell that to the governor that wants to own women.
There you go. Thank you so kindly, my dear Jane. You have a wonderful rest of your day, okay?
Thank you. Have a good show.
All right, folks. 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738.
That was a great call.
That was a great call. Jane is great. I want to welcome into the fold on the internet. Great discussion going on the internet about the subject. Eric Hayes, welcome. Alistair Waters, welcome. Maywood, welcome. We also have Julie Henderson as well in the house. Thank you guys so kindly and Bridge MCP. Thank you all for being here in the house with us today. 713-526 and Paul Fleming as well. 713-526-5738. Hit option 2. 713-526-5738. Hit option 2. Let me go ahead and finish with the essay. Thank you very much, Jane, for that call. And the bank passed, I think I better read one line before that. When they claim that the FDIC is paying for the accounts and as such taxpayers are not on the hook, that may be seemingly true, but factually false. The banks pass all these fees right back to the taxpayers with higher fees and lower interest on their deposits. While I understand that that President Biden had to bail these banks out, instead of stressing that it is not a bailout or would not affect taxpayers, he should have talked about regulating the financial sector so they would stop the soil, wash, rinse, repeat cycle. They beg the government to make them whole when they expectedly screw up and pay politicians to keep the government off of their backs when they are profiting and accumulating their ill-gotten gains. Here is a note from a Fidelity Investment blog post one should digest. Several factors led to the precipitous collapse of SVB, Silicon Valley Bank. Most of Silicon Valley Bank clients include tech and venture capital companies, in addition to executives for those firms. In an effort to attract clients, SVB offered a relatively high rate on deposit compared with many larger rivals. So here's the kicker. SVB offered relatively higher rates on deposits compared with their rivals. Remember, SVB went from a $50 billion bank to a $200 billion bank in less than 10 years. To help fund these higher rates, SVB bought longer term in higher yielding bonds when it was cash rich. But that was before the Fed began aggressively hiking rates and the venture capital market experienced some turbulence. The value of most of those bonds SVB purchased has declined substantially. Bond values generally decrease with interest rates, resulting in big investment losses. So folks, it is clear many of the accounts with millions were there for investment purposes. When you say we haven't bailed out folks, understand this. A lot of people wanted to park their money where they could earn 2% or so in a market that's only paying 0.03% tax in a manner that they know was a secure investment. And when this bank sort of went under, we made them whole. Can we make the people who have student loans that were promised a good job whole? Can we give that mother who needs a break, who needs assistance with her kid, can we consider her just as worthy as well? We have to understand our worthiness. You want to add something to this, Bruce? You've been quiet for a while.
Well, I'm just trying to think. I mean, everybody's investing in our country and trying to make things better, and so when we have problems, they should help us, make us whole, or keep us on the same path towards getting better.
I agree. Alistair, come on in, Alistair. Let's talk to my friend Alistair. Talk to me, my sister.
Oh, hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going great, my dear. Talk to me. What would you like to add to this?
Oh, my goodness. So, Jane, thank you, Jane, for helping represent Conroe, first of all, because, yeah, it's nice to know I am not alone in Montgomery County.
Actually, I'm in Montgomery County as well.
Are you really, Bruce?
Yep, Porter.
Oh, well, you're right around the corner from me. Hey. That's good to know. So, yeah, Jane was awesome. She brings a lot to the table as far as wisdom and how she spoke with, if I'm being ignored, but my husband is not, I will put up with it. And, yeah, you're absolutely right. We all need to do that. Call out the BS when we see it.
And Alistair, that is a purpose of the program. I don't want anybody to just get away and think that, we are just here trying to dog a system. We're not trying to dog a system. We are trying to let
We love our country.
Exactly.
We love our country enough to not let it stay in stagnant bathwater.
There you go, girl. You just hit the nail on the head. That's what we're talking about. The idea is we can do better. We can ensure that this country is not just for a few folk. That this country, the thing about it is the people who have a large voice, Alistair, are the ones who control media, are the ones who control everything. All we have is our little voice here at KPFT and other places. Now, if you think that the rest of the world, the rest of America is doing all that good, let me give you a number. And Bruce, I think this number is right. It's like 80% of Americans can't handle a $400 error bill. Okay,
yep, that's an 80-20.
Right. And the thing about it is there is no reason for us to live that way, Alistair, because the only reason we are in that shape is that we have not acknowledged our worth to what those who are making have acknowledged. Right. And when we can get past, and that's the goal.
With some of our family in the show on the afternoons saying how we have however many gazillion jobs that nobody wants. So it doesn't matter if people that Elizabeth Warren was standing up for against the Fed saying how many people are going to lose their jobs. You know, well, it doesn't matter because we still have 1 million jobs out there available. Well, yeah, the thing is that those jobs are available because they're not paying people to work there.
And what is interesting...
If you can't have a living wage at a job...
Right.
Or it's not emotionally fulfilling, which, let's face it, with Maslow's hierarchy of needs not being met and you're just surviving, yeah, that's not living. And too many people for too long have been suffering under that, just surviving.
Exactly. And
we're done.
I love your Michigander accent, girl. I just love your Michigander accent. I was just listening to that. It was like, wow.
People call me a Wisconsinite now. Like, no, I'm from the better side of the lake.
Come on now. I was born in Wisconsin. Don't. You know, just because I've got a cheese head.
I'm not knocking it. I have friends and family that are cheeseheads.
Yeah, Bruce is a good cheesehead, man. But let me tell you. So, I mean, the goal. So, for those that are listening, by the way, we still have a couple of minutes to take. I mean, a few more minutes to take calls. 713-526-5738, extension numero dos. Extension number 2. 713-526-5738. Hey, Alistair, you're kind of noisy in the background, but let me. No. You can't help it. So, no. There's no sorry. I'm just kind of telling you why I'm going to kind of drop you while you're not talking. Is because of a little bit of the background noise. But anyhow, you keep listening, keep calling, and thank you for what you bring to the fold. Okay, my sister.
Good to hear from you.
Totally.
All right, now.
Y'all have a good one. I'll talk to you later.
You too now. Absolutely. But anyhow, folks, I want to. If nobody else calls on this particular subject, 713-526-5738, extension 2 on the banker stuff. I hope you understood what I said. I hope you got where I'm trying to come from. The idea here, thank you, sir. The idea is that we are predisposed to think things have to be this way. It does not. We, the people, can always change things to make it more equitable for us all. I'm not saying equal for us all. I said equitable. If Bruce wants to work hard as hell, like he has throughout his life, then he deserves that extra. That for somebody who wants to chill, I agree in all of that kind of stuff. I don't, those are humane and just how things work. What I don't like is the unfair advantage. That stock and Bruce, you know what? I'm not going to cover the Big Pharma. Just to tell you that Big Pharma is running scared. We may talk about this on Friday. I'm going to leave this because I want to hit you up. Because there was a time that you and I were sitting down here talking, and I was really hitting hard on certain issues about these people, Musk and all these guys. And your comment to me before we had our conversation is, you're probably just jealous that these guys are doing things. And I want to bring that up. To explain to why you said that.
Oh, well, I'm trying to think. In my mind right now, I'm thinking everybody wants to bring value to something. And maybe sometimes people want to bring value to themselves, but our responsibility is really to bring value. If you're a human, is to bring value to everybody. And sometimes you get going down the road and you go, oh, this is really good, and it doesn't work out. So you find a different direction to go. And that's the way it goes. And
I like to listen. The reason I brought this up right here live on air, right, is the only way one can be a person that can effect change is you have to know how you're being heard on the other side. And, you have to understand how you're being heard. It's not good enough that you know what you want. You have to hope that the way you're being heard is the way you expect to be heard. And when you told me, well, the way you express that, it sounds like you're jealous of, let's say, a Musk or whatever. I wanted to handle that because the idea is, like I told you,
well, we've all shared in the creating of an idea.
Right.
And for sure, you've shared a lot in creating an idea. I've used your software ideas and tools to make things that I use better. And so we all ride on the backs of each other.
And that's the thing that, what I was trying to explain to Bruce is like, I swear to God, there's no jealousy of a Musk or all these guys that have turned that people have said turned ideas into success. because what I have for these guys is that they built it on the work of so many others. And then I turned the page on Bruce and I enumerated all these things that Bruce, over the decades that I've known him, that Bruce have created and made in the industry that he's run. And in fact, you even told me the story about that fax. Tell us that little fax story.
Oh, the idea that maybe 30 years ago that I thought it would be a good idea that perhaps they should make a fax machine, build a fax machine into a computer on the same board. We used to have a board called the modem board, and the modem board could actually do faxes too. So why not? And everybody at work kind of laughed at me. They said, "Why would that? We've got a fax machine." But 6 months later, it was a standard feature in computers that you would buy. You could send a fax right out of it.
Thank you. And the moral to that story is the following. Bruce had that idea. Hundreds of people probably had that idea, right? And one person went ahead and had that idea and had the additional business mindset to do something with it.
These days, I'm starting to think in the now.
Right.
There are things that we've got to do now, and we've got to get together and do together now to make this world be able to continue and to not have problems with the environment and problems with other kinds of people getting along, that we just got to straighten those things out one way or another. And it's all about now. It's not the past as much. History's good to learn from, but what we need to do now, we need to sit and talk together one-on-one and come up with the right ideas. That's why the calls are important for us, is because then we can see the whole picture and then we can discuss it together.
And that is why we talk also, because like I said, you need to know how you're being heard.
Yep, that's it.
You have, and you only know that by people talking back to you and people not having the fear to just in your face tell you the things and that's what I want us to be here.
And that's the point Egberto made to me, is that he sounds that way, but he sounds that way because he wants to be there to balance everybody so we can get the discussion going.
Absolutely so, folks. But anyhow, I think I got 2 more minutes before we have to get out of here because there's another show coming. Only 1 minute.
Oh, solamente
Only
uno.
1 minuto. ¿Qué es lo que te
Pobrecito.
pasa, hermano? Mierco. All right, folks. Give me that scratch again. I want to hear that again. Here, you see, hey, I'm trying to get cool, man. I want to be cool. You know what I mean,
That's
Bruce?
a different language entirely.
There you go. Anyway, folks, look, I want to first thank you guys all for listening. Please remember to check in. Please remember to tell other people about KPFT 90.1. We have great programs throughout the day. Always remember, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, noon, Politics Done Right. Tell people about it and get your butts on air with us. 713-526-5738 extension 2. But anyhow, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what, Bruce? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.